She said it in a half-whisper, as if the words slipped past her lips before she could stop them. "You're thinking what I'm thinking, aren't you?" The room seemed to shrink when she said it. The hum of the air conditioner, the faint ticking of the clock on her wall. Everything receded until it was just her voice and the silence that followed. I couldn't answer right away. My throat felt too dry, my hands too restless. She sat across from me at her dining table, leaning back just enough to seem at ease. Yet her fingers tapped against the stem of her wine glass as if they had a mind of their own. She was in her mid-40s, though time seemed to favor her. Silver threaded lightly through her hair, catching the warm daylight that spilled through the blinds. She had the kind of presence that filled a room without effort, but I had already noticed that she often avoided being looked at too long. And yet, I couldn't help but look. I was 20, still carrying the raw edges of youth. The parts that make you hesitate when you should speak, or speak when silence would be wiser. Around her, all of that clumsiness felt sharper, more exposed. She noticed every fidget, every glance. She made me feel transparent. Her foot brushed mine under the table, and though it could have been accidental, she didn't pull away. I felt my heartbeat press against my ribs, an echo too loud in my own ears. "You're quiet tonight," she said finally. Her tone was light, but there was something beneath it, an invitation, or maybe a warning. I trailed off, caught in her gaze. She didn't look away, and that, more than anything, made me stumble. I guess I'm trying not to say the wrong thing. Her lips curved, not quite into a smile, but close. And what would that be? The way she asked it, it wasn't teasing. It was almost serious, like she needed to hear the answer. I couldn't give it to her. Not yet. Instead, I reached for my glass, only to realize my hand was trembling slightly. I set it back down too quickly. The sound of glass on wood was louder than it should have been, and she noticed. Her eyes flickered to my hand, then back to my face. The silence stretched between us, thick but not unbearable. Charged. I felt every inch of the space separating us, and yet she seemed impossibly close. Her perfume, subtle, something floral I couldn't name, clung to the air, making it harder to think clearly. When she leaned forward, resting her chin lightly against her palm, the movement drew me in as surely as if she had reached out to take me by the collar. Her eyes softened, though something guarded lingered just beneath the surface. "I think," she said slowly, "you're not used to being seen this way." The word struck deeper than I expected. Seen. Not admired, not judged, not dismissed, seen. My chest tightened, though I didn't know how to respond. She let the moment linger, then reached across the table, her fingers brushing the back of my hand. It was light, fleeting, but it set off a spark that moved straight through me. I should have pulled back, but I didn't. Neither did she. Her touch lingered for half a second too long, and that was enough. The weight of it hung in the air, a secret that neither of us had said aloud yet, though we both knew. I opened my mouth to speak, to ask her what she meant, or maybe to confess something I wasn't sure I should, but the sound of the front door unlocking snapped us both out of it. Her hand withdrew instantly. Her body straightened, composure snapping back into place like a curtain drawn too quickly. She didn't look at me, not yet, but her last words, soft and unshaken, still hung in the silence between us. "You're thinking what I'm thinking, aren't you?" The door clicked shut, footsteps moving down the hallway. Whoever had entered didn't come into the dining room. Just the faint shuffle of shoes being kicked off, the rustle of a bag being set down. Then silence again. She exhaled slowly, as if she had been holding her breath since the key turned. Her hand, now folded neatly in her lap, gave nothing away. But her eyes avoided mine, and that was telling enough. It was the first time I realized how dangerous this was. Not just the age difference, though the weight of it was obvious, but the fact that her life and mine were supposed to run on parallel tracks, not intersect. People would talk. People always talk. I shifted in my chair, trying to mask the tightness in my chest. "I didn't know someone else lived here," I said, too casually. Her gaze flicked back to me. "They don't. Just, sometimes, I keep a spare key for friends." The pause before friends was deliberate. Too deliberate. I nodded, though I didn't believe her. I didn't press. The silence that followed was its own kind of confession. She stood, smoothing the fabric of her blouse. "Let's sit somewhere less formal." Without waiting for my answer, she walked toward the living room. I followed, careful to leave just enough distance between us. The sofa was wide enough for comfort, But when she sat, she didn't choose the far end. She left barely a cushion between us, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her body. "Do you ever regret things?" she asked suddenly. Her tone was softer now, stripped of the playful edge she'd had earlier. "Sometimes," I admitted. Her eyes stayed forward, not on me. I wasted years on someone who couldn't really see me. And when it ended, I thought I'd feel free. But mostly, I just felt older. She pressed her lips together, as if she'd said too much. I didn't know how to answer. Instead, I let the weight of her words settle between us. And in that pause, I realized how much I noticed about her. Details I shouldn't have memorized, but did anyway. The faint line at the corner of her mouth when she frowned. The way her collar slipped slightly when she leaned back, revealing more of her skin than she probably intended. I caught myself staring and turned away too quickly. But she noticed. Of course she did. Her hand rested briefly on my shoulder, light and steady. "You're too serious for your age," she murmured, so close her breath brushed my neck. The warmth of it made me shiver. "Maybe I just don't want to waste time," I said. My voice came out rougher than I intended. Her hand lingered longer than it should have, then fell away. But the trace of it remained, burning through my shirt like a secret I couldn't shake. We sat in silence, not looking at each other, but not moving apart either. The air between us felt charged, alive, waiting for something neither of us dared to name. And then, without a word, her fingers brushed against mine on the sofa cushion, not pulling back this time. Not pretending. Just resting there, light but deliberate. Neither of us spoke. We didn't have to. The electricity in that touch was enough. Her fingers still rested against mine, feather-light, as though either of us could pretend it wasn't happening. But the silence in the room betrayed us. The faint hum of the lamp, the thud of my own pulse loud in my ears. I turned slightly, just enough to catch her profile. She didn't look at me, but her hand didn't move either. It stayed there, suspended between accident and intention. The sound of a phone vibrating shattered the stillness. Sharp, intrusive. Her hand pulled back instantly, the air cooling where her warmth had been. She reached for the phone on the coffee table, her thumb brushing across the screen. A message flashed in the glow, just enough for me to catch. "Are you alone?" She tilted the screen away quickly, almost too quickly. "Work," she said, her voice tight. The word clipped like she wanted it to end the subject. But it didn't. It hung in the room, heavy. The reminder that this wasn't just about me and her. There were other eyes, other voices, waiting on the edges. I shifted closer without meaning to. "You don't have to explain," I murmured. Her gaze flicked to me then, sharp but softened almost immediately. "That's the problem," she said quietly. "I feel like I should." Her shoulder brushed mine, whether by accident or gravity, I couldn't tell. The warmth of her body pulled at me, even as her words pushed me back. I should have leaned away. Instead, I leaned in. "Do you ever think about what people would say?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her lips parted as though she had an answer, then closed again. The silence stretched too long. Finally, she let out a small laugh, tired, not amused. Every day, her hand, almost unconsciously, lifted toward me, hovering just short of touching my face. My chest tightened, waiting, bracing. But she pulled back before contact, fingers curling against her palm like she had caught herself too late. We were too close now. I could see the faint tremor in her jaw, the tiny flecks of gold in her eyes. The space between us thinned until the thought of closing it became unbearable. I leaned in, just slightly, breath catching. Her eyes dropped to my mouth before darting away, betraying her. She felt it too. And then, a knock at the front door. She jolted, the spell broken. "Don't move," she whispered, rising quickly. Her steps across the floor were steady, but I saw the tension in her shoulders. The muffled exchange at the door was brief. A neighbor, returning something borrowed. She closed the door gently, carefully, and when she turned back, her composure was thin as glass. She sat again, closer than before this time, as though distance had become impossible. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. Her hand found mine again, this time without hesitation. Her grip was firmer, her eyes unflinching. We were caught between the fear of being discovered and the impossible pull drawing us closer. And neither of us pulled away. The second time her hand found mine, she didn't let go. The quiet between us thickened, like the air itself refused to move. I swallowed hard, unsure if I should speak, unsure if silence was safer. But the weight of it pressed against my chest until the words slipped out, unsteady. I think about you more than I should. Her eyes darted to mine, wide but not surprised. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she leaned back slightly, studying me as if searching for a reason to laugh it off, to dismiss it. But she didn't. That's dangerous, she whispered finally. I know. Her breath caught, the faintest sound, and her grip on my hand tightened just enough for me to feel it. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she lifted her free hand, almost tentatively, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. Except she didn't quite succeed. My hand rose, unthinking, and I did it for her. My fingers grazed her cheek, lingering longer than they should. Her skin was warm, impossibly soft. She closed her eyes at the touch, just briefly, and when she opened them again, they burned with something raw. You don't understand what this could cost me, she said, her voice low, trembling between fear and want. Then tell me not to, I murmured, leaning closer. Tell me to stop thinking about you, and I will. The silence that followed was unbearable. She should have said it, should have ended it right there. But she didn't. Instead, she let her head tip forward, resting lightly against my shoulder. I froze, then breathed her in. The scent of her hair, the warmth of her body pressed just enough to feel it. My heart pounded so hard I thought she must hear it. Her voice came muffled against me. You're too young to know what you want. And you're too afraid to admit you do, I whispered back. She pulled back then, sharply, her eyes flashing. Not anger, not exactly. More like something breaking inside her. She stared at me, caught between denial and surrender, lips parted as if she wanted to argue. But instead, she said, You don't realize, I can't stop thinking about you either. The words landed like a match dropped into dry grass. My breath faltered, hers hitched. The space between us evaporated. I leaned forward. She didn't move away. Her hand slid to the back of my neck, tentative at first, then firmer. I could feel the heat of her palm, the tremor in her fingers. Our faces hovered inches apart, her breath mingling with mine. The world outside ceased to exist. No neighbors, no phones, no clocks. Just this unbearable closeness, the question hanging in the air. Her lips parted. My hand pressed against her waist, pulling her fractionally closer. And then, a sharp knock rattled the door. We froze. Neither of us pulled back. Her eyes locked on mine, wide, desperate, unblinking. The knock came again. She whispered, breathless, on the edge of a choice that couldn't be undone. If I open that door, everything changes. The knock at the door grew louder, insistent. She pulled back only enough to stand, her hand slipping reluctantly from the back of my neck. Stay here, she whispered, her voice low, urgent. I sat frozen on the sofa as she walked to the door. Her steps were steady, but I noticed the tremor in her hands as she reached for the knob. When she opened it, a voice spilled inside, casual at first, too casual. You didn't answer my messages. I was worried. It was a man's voice. I couldn't see him from where I sat, but I saw the way her body stiffened, blocking the doorway with her frame. I was busy, she said quickly. Her tone was calm, but her shoulders gave her away, tense, unyielding. The man laughed softly. Busy with what? Or with who? The word sent a chill through me. He knew, or at least suspected. I think you should go, she said firmly. Silence. Then, footsteps retreating down the hall. The door shut again with a soft thud, but the silence that followed was deafening. When she turned back, her face was pale, her composure thin as glass. For a long moment, she just looked at me, like I was the very thing she shouldn't want, and yet couldn't stop wanting. Who was that? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Her answer came slowly, waited. Someone I should have let go of a long time ago. Someone who won't let go of me. Her voice cracked on the last word. She pressed her hand against the wall, steadying herself, as though she'd revealed too much. I rose, closing the distance between us. He suspects, I said quietly. Her eyes flickered with fear, then something else, something darker, almost relief. Then maybe it's already too late. She stepped back as I moved closer, but not far enough. The hallway was narrow, and my shoulder brushed against hers as I passed. The touch was brief, accidental, but her breath hitched audibly. Do you want me to leave? I asked, stopping just behind her. Her hand tightened against the wall, knuckles white. That's the worst part, she whispered. I should want you gone. I don't. The admission landed heavy between us. Her head dropped, hair falling forward, and I reached out before I could stop myself, brushing it back behind her ear. My fingers grazed her skin, and she shivered. Not pulling away, not this time. The air between us pulsed with tension, unbearable and magnetic. She turned, slowly, her face inches from mine. I could see the fear in her eyes, but also the desire she no longer tried to hide. If we keep going, she said softly, her lips trembling, there's no undoing this. I held her gaze, my voice low, certain. Then don't stop me. Her breath caught, her chest rising sharply, and for a heartbeat we hovered there, caught between disaster and inevitability. And then, instead of pulling back, she closed the gap by the smallest fraction, enough to make it clear a decision had been made. Her face was so close I could see the faint tremor in her lips, the quick rise and fall of her breath. The hallway light was dim, throwing soft shadows across her features, but her eyes burned with a clarity that pinned me where I stood. Say something, she whispered, though her voice already carried the answer. I can't, I said. Not without ruining everything. Then maybe it needs to be ruined. The words left her mouth before she could pull them back. She froze, as if shocked at her own confession. I didn't move either. It was as though the entire world leaned forward with us, waiting. Her hand came first, hesitant, trembling, resting against my chest. The contact was so slight, yet I felt it like fire. My heart raced beneath her palm, betraying me. She closed her eyes briefly, as though feeling the beat was enough of an answer. I lifted my hand slowly, brushing her hair back from her face, fingers grazing her skin. She didn't flinch. She leaned into it. You don't know what this means, she murmured, though her body betrayed her words. She was already closer, already leaning into the pull neither of us could fight. I know enough, I whispered back, my forehead almost touching hers. I know I can't keep pretending I don't want this. Her breath caught, sharp, vulnerable. For a long second, we hovered there, suspended on the edge of choice. I could feel the warmth of her, the faint tremble in her hand as it slid higher, clutching at my shirt as though anchoring herself. Then the space between us collapsed. Her lips found mine, not careful, not practiced, but desperate. The kiss was not perfect. It was unsteady, clashing with the years of fear and hesitation we had carried. But it was real. My hands cupped her face. Hers clung to me like she was afraid I'd vanish. The world beyond the hallway ceased to exist. The knocking, the voices, the shadows of judgment. None of it mattered. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathless, she didn't step back. Her forehead rested against mine, her eyes closed. This is madness, she whispered, though her grip on me didn't loosen. Then let it be, I said. My voice was rough, raw but certain. For the first time, she laughed, a quiet, broken sound, half relief, half surrender. She pulled me closer again, her body pressing into mine, and there was no longer any pretense. We had crossed the line. The fear was still there, the weight of what this meant, but it no longer kept us apart. We stood in the dim hallway, breathing each other in, the silence finally honest. When she opened her eyes, she didn't look away. Not this time. I see you, she said simply. And I knew then. We both understood, fully, without excuses. We didn't move for a long time. The hallway was quiet now, the world outside the door fading back into distance. Her forehead still rested against mine, her breathing uneven but slowly steadying. When she finally spoke, it wasn't with the sharp edge I'd grown used to, but with something softer. You shouldn't want this, she whispered. I almost smiled. Maybe not. But I do. Her hand lingered against my chest, fingers curling into the fabric of my shirt as though she needed proof I was real. She let out a shaky laugh, quiet and raw. You're too stubborn for your own good. Or maybe, I said gently, I just know what I want. Her eyes flickered up to meet mine, cautious at first, then unguarded. For the first time, she didn't pull away from the closeness. Instead, she leaned into it, her head coming to rest against my shoulder. We stood there in silence, letting the weight of everything settle, not avoided, not denied, but carried between us. The fear was still there, the knowledge of what people might say, of the years between us. But in that moment, neither of us stepped back. Her arm slid around me, tentative at first, then sure. I wrapped mine around her in return, holding her closer than I thought I ever would. She fit against me in a way that felt both impossible and inevitable, like we had been resisting gravity until now. I don't know what happens after this, she admitted softly, her words muffled against me. Neither do I said. But I know I don't want to go back to pretending. She pulled back just enough to look at me, her hand slipping into mine. Her fingers intertwined with mine naturally, as though they belonged there. The smallest smile touched her lips. You make everything more complicated, she murmured, though her thumb traced gently over my knuckle. And you make everything worth it, I answered. The words hung between us, not needing more. She didn't argue this time. Instead, she leaned in and pressed her lips softly against my forehead. It was a kiss not of fire, but of something steadier, acceptance, surrender, maybe even hope. We sank down together onto the sofa, her body close against mine, our hands still tangled. The lamp cast a warm glow across the room, wrapping us in quiet intimacy. No big declarations, no promises we weren't ready to make. Just two people, choosing not to let go. And for the first time that night, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was gentle. We stayed there like that, her head on my shoulder, my hand resting lightly over hers, letting the world outside wait. Whatever came next, we would face it. Together. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?